Imagine waking up on a pristine floating island of vegetation on the planet Venus. This is the unfallen world of C.S. Lewis's Perelandra. But for the protagonist, Ransom, the peaceful awakening is shattered immediately. His companion, the brilliant but erratic Professor Weston, has vanished in the night, taking their only boat and supplies with him. Fearing Weston means to harm the planet's innocent inhabitants, Ransom takes a desperate physical gamble. He mounts a giant silvery fish, riding the beast across a swelling, pitch-black ocean, illuminated only by bursting star shells of bioluminescent sea life. This ride through the phosphorescent waves feels pulled directly from ancient myth. Yet even the strange sea creatures darting beneath him are harmless, a stark reminder that this entire planet remains completely unspoiled. As Ransom speeds through the vast, empty darkness, the physical isolation shifts the stakes. The silence of the ocean leaves him alone with the realization that he is heading toward a confrontation where physical strength may be entirely irrelevant. Ransom eventually washes ashore on another floating island, in absolute darkness. He wakes hours later to the sound of an earnest conversation occurring mere inches away. He recognizes the voice of the innocent queen, and the voice answering her belongs to Weston. Looking at this page, Ransom notes an intolerable contradiction. The voice is Weston's, but the alien patience is unnatural. Something else is using his body. Paralyzed, Ransom realizes he's listening to a live, surgical attempt to corrupt a new world, a second Eden's temptation. The enemy has no physical weapons. Instead, it relies entirely on a methodical, terrifyingly reasonable assault on the Queen's mind. The entity's first goal is to detach the Queen's mind from absolute reality. In a world where only truth exists, it introduces the concept of the hypothetical. Looking at this passage, we see the entity question her about the one forbidden rule on the planet, dwelling on the fixed land. When she asks why they should talk about something they cannot do, the entity explains that humans put words together to mean things that have never happened. It frames this not as a lie, but as an expansion of the mind. By stepping out of what is into what might be, it claims her thoughts will grow wider like the branches of a tree. This is a brilliant rhetorical wedge. By teaching her to imagine a fictional scenario where she breaks the rules, it creates the conceptual framework for actual rebellion. Once the idea of the hypothetical takes root, the entity pivots. It targets her deepest, purest motivation, her devotion to her absent husband, the king. The text here reveals the trap closing. The entity tells her that by learning things on her own, she is becoming a full woman. It describes the women of Earth as having a great spirit. Crucially, it points out that these women do not wait for God to tell them what is good. They seize it themselves. The entity argues that her king must be tired of always being the older, wiser partner. Breaking the rule would allow her to surprise him with a wisdom she earned entirely on her own. The unman has successfully repackaged defiance. Breaking the rule now appears to be a brave, romantic sacrifice that will finally allow the queen to stand as a truly equal partner to her king. The final lie is the most devastating because it turns obedience inside out. The entity suggests that God, whom they call Maladel, secretly desires her to disobey. This diagram illustrates the rhetorical knot the entity ties. It argues that God issues a prohibition precisely so she can prove her maturity by breaking it. Obedience requires following the rule, but true independent courage requires breaking it. Suddenly, defying God is framed as the ultimate, secret test of loyalty. Lying in the darkness, Ransom listens in frozen horror. The sheer, suffocating intelligence required to weave this trap leaves him completely paralyzed. The entity has successfully engineered a scenario where the ultimate act of betrayal feels like the highest possible expression of faith and love. Then, abruptly, the conversation ends. The queen announces she will sleep, and the entity snaps back in Weston's irritable voice before silence falls over the island. The text describes a sudden shift in the atmosphere. Ransom feels celestial music pouring into his mind. The passage confirms the queen's innocence held its ground. A great disaster has been averted, and the fall of this world prevented. Through this dialogue, Lewis maps the subtle mechanics of corruption. Temptation speaks with a quiet, rational voice, meticulously framing self-elevation and pride as forms of higher virtue. But the relief is fleeting. Ransom realizes the enemy will try again tomorrow. He wasn't brought across the solar system to merely witness a debate. He's the only defense this world has left in an active cosmic war.